Hi everybody, welcome to Momentum. My guest today is Hillel Fuld. Hillel is a globally recognized tech strategist, writer, and startup advisor. He's worked with trillion-dollar brands, that's trillion with a T, like Google and Microsoft. He regularly writes for columns like Inc. magazine, and he's traveled to over 50 cities globally on speaking engagements. Since October 7th, Hillel has paused his work activities entirely and dedicated his time to fighting misinformation about Israel online, which is just unbelievable. Above all, Hillel is dedicated to helping people, as you'll hear in the episode. I'm Victor Braca, your host, and Momentum is where I dive deep with exceptional leaders to uncover the key decisions, defining moments, and lessons that propelled them to success, and how those insights can inspire your journey forward. In this episode, Hillel tells some incredible stories, for example, about how he got in touch with Steve Wozniak, the founder of Apple,
Honestly, Steve Wozniak, the founder of Apple and the man who invented personal computing, you know how I got to interview him?
and the story of how he met Mark Andreessen, founder of the $42 billion venture capital firm Andreessen Horowitz.
He literally takes the phone. He's like, I'll call you back. Hangs up the phone. He goes, hello, what's up? I was like, holy I'm talking to Mark Andreessen right now. Like, wow. He knows I exist. I was like, what the heck?
Hillel also shares the lessons he learned about how to build and scale a successful company after working with dozens of startups.
Every business has to make this decision from the get-go.
This was a super insightful conversation. You're going to love it. Enjoy. Hello, welcome to Momentum. This is so exciting.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. So I actually came across a LinkedIn post. As I always do, you're very active on social media. You posted that Riverside, which is the platform, to record video podcasts, was an Israeli company. So I want to start there, actually. Why did you post that? And just how does that explain what you do in a way?
Well, first of all, let's forget the fact that Riverside wasn't working for us just now and pretend that didn't happen.
That didn't happen.
No, but I think, it's a very interesting thing because Riverside is a super duper popular podcasting platform used by the biggest companies in the world. And, everyone kind of knows that Israel is a leading technology superpower, but there are some companies that everyone knows are Israeli. And then there are some companies that no one knows are Israeli. So like everyone knows Waze is Israeli. Many people don't know that Wix is Israeli, but, Riverside, which again is super popular, almost no one knows is Israeli. Which it's just fascinating to me. So I met with the CEO a couple of days ago, and I just heard about the company and its growth and its investors and everything. It's a wildly successful company that just most people don't realize they're Israeli.
So your tagline is transforming startups into businesses. I wanna hear. Can you share with us how you got started in the startup tech ecosystem?
Sure. So about 20 years ago, I'm at my first job, bored out of my mind. I was at a job that is highly inappropriate, or I would say not inappropriate, unoptimized for someone with ADHD like myself. And I'm literally sitting at my desk one day bored, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. I don't know why I'm doing this. I should be doing something with tech and writing. I love writing. I love tech. And so I just opened a web browser, bought a website, and started to write. Today we call that a blog. It wasn't a word that people used regularly back then. And I sure as heck didn't have a business model. I just had a deep, deep passion for technology and writing. And so I started to write. And pretty quickly, entrepreneurs came across my writing, reached out to me, asked to meet. I would meet with them, tried to help them in any way that I could. And really just kind of one thing led to another. And, companies that I helped early on came back to me sometimes a decade later and said, listen, you helped us back then. We were a small company. Now we're a big company, and we want to work with you. And so I built this multi-million-dollar consulting business from companies that, again, I met with, offered to help for free. And it ended up scaling.
I want to go backwards in time a little bit. I want to zoom into your childhood. Tell me about your life before you moved to Israel. You moved when you were a teenager, I believe?
Correct. I grew up in Queens, in New York, to a family of educators. My dad famously started, or one of the first principles of SAR, really a visionary in the education world. And my mom was also an educator. Hardcore Zionists. My dad's a rabbi, so grew up in a religious home. And all in all, good childhood. With five brothers, and the second we were able to move to Israel, we moved to Israel, and I came in 10th grade. So I was in 9th grade in New York, 10th grade in Jerusalem, and moved here. Wasn't an easy age, but slowly kind of integrated into Israeli society. And now 30 years later, I could tell you it's the best thing that ever happened to me.
Love it. Love it. Were you always entrepreneurial as a child, or did that develop later on?
I don't think that was a word when I was a child. Like
Right.
I don't think that,
Right.
these things that we do today, like influencer and social media and all these things, they didn't exist back then. So I definitely didn't think of myself as an entrepreneur. Truth be told, I don't know that I think of myself as an entrepreneur now. I think of myself as maybe a marketing executive or whatever it is. It happens to be that I built this company, and I guess, objectively, I am an entrepreneur. But I got to be honest, I never really saw myself as an entrepreneur, even though I started a few startups and I worked with startups. I just saw myself as a marketing guy. And the truth is, you say it, and I realized that, yeah, I built this multi-million-dollar company with my, 10 fingers. So I guess I am an entrepreneur.
Right. Yeah. It's like once you look back and you really see what you've built, you might not have been calling yourself that for, for your entire career, but a lot of people realize afterwards, maybe I can call myself that. You know what I mean? I hear from a lot of entrepreneurs and businessmen and marketing guys that their first jobs, their early working experience paved the way for them in terms of professionalism, we'll say, for their future. So you told me your first job was not optimized for somebody with ADHD, right? I want to hear from you your early working experiences as a whole. Did you meet key people? Did you learn key skills? Tell me about that.
Right. So I have a degree in political science, which obviously has nothing to do with tech. And when I finished my degree, I was like, now what? I had no idea. And so someone said to me, listen, you have English, right? You obviously am, English speaker, and you like writing and you love tech. So go be a technical writer. And I was like, I don't know what that is, a technical writer, but it sounds good. And then I quickly realized that a technical writer are the guys that write the user guides you get with your iPhone that no one ever reads. And I found myself at this tech company writing their user guides, literally like for AT&T and T and Verizon. Um, and truth be told, I didn't for many, many years understand, because I'm the type of guy who, as a religious Jew, I always think like, why did this event happen? Like what was God's plan here? And for many, many years, I would say even decades, I kind of questioned like, why was I a technical writer? Like, why did God send me to do that? Like, what could I possibly have gained from that? But now I can tell you many, many years later that of course I gained from that. What I gained was a technical writer needs to take something complex and simplify it. That's the skill set of a technical writer, which is what I do as a blogger, which is what I do as a journalist, which is what I do as a marketing person. I take startups with their, deep technology and complicated algorithms, and I teach them how to simplify it so they could talk to normal human beings. And everything that I do, in theory, I guess, is simplifying, right? Simplification. And I learned that skill from that first job.
Nice. And you do that as a public speaker as well. You travel all over the world.
True. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. So I want to hear about growing your personal brand. You gave us the high level, but what skills, what traits, what pushed you ahead, to do that over the course of 10, 20 years and, to where you are today?
15 years ago, I would say I started this journey. So listen, things become cliche because they're repeated over and over again because they're true. And so what I'm about to say is going to be cliche, but it's the truth, and that is that none of this would have happened. Literally, none of it would have happened had I not been deeply, deeply passionate about tech. Right? You can't pursue a career because you think it's lucrative, but it's something that you're not passionate about. It won't work. It won't scale. And
Right.
so everything started from the fact that I had this deep, deep passion for technology and for writing. And, that really was at the foundation of building my brand, right? The content. And it's all I've really ever done. If you think about it, all I've ever done is content, right? So, content in different forms, right? It's public speaking, blogging, journalism, whatever it is, but it's all content. So, as I started to produce all that content on the internet and I did it consistently, I would say at a scale that, one might say is a little bit, I don't know about supernatural, but it's definitely a little bit crazy how much content I produced over the years. We were just looking a minute ago at this. I've never done this before, but you mentioned that you looked at Spotify and you Spotified my name. I don't know if it's a verb, but you searched my name on
Right.
Spotify and
Right.
you just kept scrolling. I never did that before, and I just opened Spotify and I searched my name, and I'm like, holy hell, I've done a lot of podcasts.
It's a great
So I,
strategy. Yeah.
Yes, I produced a lot of content over the years, and really that is what led to my brand. Because when, as a company or as an individual, when you start producing content about the industry that you're in, everything else that you're going to do as you continue to build that brand becomes more effective. PR becomes more effective, social media becomes more effective, user acquisition becomes more effective, business development, fundraising, everything helps, or everything is assisted by content. So really that's kind of what led to me building this brand, I guess.
And throughout your 15 years building your brand, your personal brand, you mentioned you help startups for free with really without any expectation of anything in return. How has that specific mindset allowed you to grow, allowed you to get involved with all these companies?
Yeah, so I think honestly that I kind of stumbled upon something that I think is both unique and, if I may say so myself, slightly brilliant. And that is that if you look at every business, and it really doesn't matter what type of business it is, any business, the order in which things are done is as follows. You make a promise, such as, I have amazing sushi. You monetize that promise, aka you buy my sushi, and you hopefully deliver on that promise. Hopefully the sushi's good. But you're making a promise and you're monetizing the promise, meaning you're paying for my sushi before you even tasted it. I said, let's flip that. Let's flip that order. Instead of making a promise and monetizing the promise, how about I deliver first? And then the recipient of whatever it is I'm delivering understands that it's worth their money, that I'm valuable to them. And then they come to me and they need me. And then there's no negotiation, right? Because I have the leverage. You need me. I don't need you. So by flipping that order and delivering first, I was able to build, this multi-million dollar consulting business from companies came to me and said, listen, we know what you're capable of. We know what you did for us. Take our money, basically.
So take me back to the days when, the early days of you doing this, providing your service for free. First of all, how are you making money? How are you supporting yourself? And did you have that, that forward-looking mindset of, if I do this for long enough, I'm going to be able to build a multi-million dollar brand out of this?
So absolutely not. At no point did I do any of this in order to achieve success. I did it because I really wanted to do it. I sat with entrepreneurs.
Right.
I genuinely loved helping them and I helped them. And again, the irony here is that had I either monetized from the get-go or planned for monetization, I would never have done any of the things that I did.
Exactly.
In the short term, it didn't make any sense. Like, why are you helping people for free? So in the beginning, when I was doing this, I had a job, right? I was this technical writer. Then I was recruited by a tech company to be head of marketing. And I literally, as I was working for this tech company as head of marketing, I used to meet entrepreneurs for lunch, to the point that the CEO of the company actually changed my title at the company from head of marketing to, I think it was chief evangelist or senior evangelist. And that was my
That's
role.
cool.
Go meet startups and, and elevate our brand. And so, I had a job. I was supporting myself, at a normal job. But none of this was planned. And again, let's just take it down to a simplistic level, right? Had I started blogging in order to monetize, I would have put ads on my blog. I would have tried to get sponsorships, and I would not have been focused on producing good content. That would not have been my focus. Because I wasn't thinking about that and I was just doing it purely for the passion here, I didn't plan to monetize and I didn't jeopardize or compromise the quality of my content, which then ironically led me to monetization. So it's an ironic kind of weird thing to grasp, that it's kind of like the more you sell, the less you sell.
Right.
When people feel like they're being sold to, then they're less inclined to buy. I mean, I don't know if you watch Seinfeld. Do you watch Seinfeld?
It's here and there. Whenever I'm on the plane, I download a couple Seinfeld episodes.
There's a brilliant scene in Seinfeld where they're sitting in their living room and they get a phone call. Jerry answers the phone and says, the telemarketer on the other end of the phone says, oh, we're calling to offer you, 50% off your phone bill or whatever. So Jerry says to him, I can't really talk right now. Why don't you give me your number and I'll call you back? And the telemarketer's like, I can't give you my number. So Jerry's like, why? You don't want me calling you at home? Now you know how I feel, right? No one likes to be sold to. No one. And so in an ironic way, the more you sell, the less you sell. And the less you sell, meaning the more you give actual value and the person does not feel like they're being sold to, the more they're inclined to actually buy. So it's a weird thing, but it works.
I love it. And I noticed that amongst really everybody who, every successful individual, it's really all fueled from the passion either to help people or of their product or how they can change the world from the beginning. And then, the success, the monetary success comes later. It comes, but I think to not focus on that from the beginning, it's key. I've noticed that it's key.
Yeah, I mean, but again, let me just so your viewers don't think this is like an abstract concept. Let's just take this down to like a granular, very practical example. Let's say I develop an app. Let's say I have an app, right? I develop an app. So now I have a choice to make. Do I focus on monetization from the get-go, or do I focus on building an amazing product? Because if I'm focused on monetization, I'm going to put ads in my app, which by definition means that you're going to like my app less, right? So yeah, I'll make a couple of bucks, but it's not a sustainable thing because people are not going to enjoy using my app because they're going to be spammed with ads all the time. Or I could say, I'm going to build an amazing product that people are going to love and it's going to be sticky. People are going to keep coming back because they love it. Zero monetization.
Right.
But once it's sticky and once it scales and once it hits critical mass, then I flip the switch on monetization. And then the road to monetization is super short because I already have an engaged audience. So every business has to make this decision from the get-go. Every business. Do you focus on short-term gains or do you focus on long-term value? And if you focus on short-term gains, you'll make some money in the get-go, but it's not a long-term sustainable strategy. Whereas you focus on real value and building an amazing product, then monetization will follow.
I love it. I love that mindset. I think you build an amazing product, seek to help people, and you'll see success in that. So I've been following you on LinkedIn for a while, and you're very active, as you said, on all platforms. I've been following you on LinkedIn for a while. One specific thing you do on LinkedIn, I noticed you're a true networker. You're not a superficial one. You don't want to try to build up your relationships so you can get things out of people. Our viewers can tell, right? I want you to share about the practice of sharing different people on LinkedIn every day, every week. How did that arise, and what have you seen from that?
So, again, it's really the same concept. While everyone else is focused on themselves, me, self-promotion, talk about me, sell me. I'm like, let me focus on other people. Let me give other people a stage. And, again, I did it really for the right reasons because I happened to meet unbelievable people. And I figure like, it's great to feature these people, let the world know about these unbelievable people. But if we're going to get cynical for 1 second, if we're going to put on our business cap and realize and think about like, okay, what's the ROI for me? Well, if you think about it, if your LinkedIn feed is full of 800 pictures and every single one of those pictures has two things in common. One is that the person in the picture is an absolute rock star. And the reason that they're a rock star is explained in the post itself. So that's the one thing they all have in common. And the second thing they all have in common is all 800 of them in that picture are standing next to this dude named Hillel Fuld. Well, what does that say about Hillel Fuld if he's standing next to 800 rock stars? I guess it means that I'm a rock star. Now, I at no point said I'm a rock star, but perception is reality in marketing, right? And so, again, I don't do it for this purpose, but it's an amazing marketing tactic to build a stage and put people on that stage, because then you're perceived as the person who built the stage as the owner, right? As the real deal. And again, it's not just, LinkedIn posts or Hillel Fuld. Companies should do this too. As a company, you should be interviewing people in your industry. You should be listing people in your industry. You should be featuring people in your industry. You should be highlighting people in your industry. And then you're perceived as, oh, it's that company that features all those rock stars. The company must be a rock star.
As somebody who travels all over to speak to people, to deliver messages to people, to tell people your advice, you have any tips on being an effective communicator?
Yeah, of course. First of all, always think about the audience. Like, again, that manifests online and offline. Like, I'll just give you a very basic example, right? So many people, specifically on Twitter, but on all platforms, are constantly concerned with how do they get more followers. And so one of the things that these people do is they basically stuff their tweets with hashtags, right? Because they want people to discover them. But what they're in essence doing when they say that is, I care more about getting new followers than the followers who follow me now, right? I'm not focused on the people who follow me now because I'm not giving them any value. I'm just stuffing these hashtags into my tweets. So you're not paying attention to your audience. Think about your audience. Stop thinking about potential audiences. Think about your audience, right? So, that's first of all, know your audience. Think about them. In other words, the other day I gave a talk to a group of business coaches. When talking to them, I didn't speak the same way or give the same tips as I do when I'm talking to a tech company. It's a different audience, right? And by the way, and again, that manifests online as well with that. Many people kind of post something and then like either copy paste it or use some app to just broadcast on all their different platforms. I don't do that. I do one by one because my LinkedIn audience is different than my Twitter audience, and my Twitter audience is different than my Facebook audience. And it's not the same writing. It's not the same format. It's not the same message. So, first of all, know your audience. But, when I tell startups all the time, if you're going to an investor and you think that you're going to come in there and start talking to the investor about your algorithm, you're sorely mistaken. And, it's a logical mistake that entrepreneurs make because it's their baby. They've been building this algorithm, this technology forever, and they want to talk about it. But again, they're not paying attention to the audience. No one cares what algorithm you built. It's irrelevant. Talk to me about why you built it. Why should I care? Not what you built or how you built it. No one cares. Talk to me about why I should care, right? So that's something that is so fundamental to the way startups communicate. In terms of public speaking, there's endless literature on this. I mean, I can tell you a nice hack that I've kind of, I don't know if I invented or I heard it from someone, I don't even know, but if you're speaking and you feel like you're losing the audience, here's a good hack. It works 100% of the time, 100% success. If you're talking and you feel like you're losing the audience, just simply say, all right, guys, I shouldn't tell you this, but, and you see everyone's like, oh, what's he going to say? What's he going to say? That's just a nice hack. But
I like that.
You gotta engage the audience. So for example, when I'm talking about tech, I always kind of get into my talk at some point saying, all right, raise your hand if you use an iPhone. And iPhone and Android's like a religion, right? It's like such a loaded topic that people care so deeply about. So when I ask the audience who here is using an iPhone, and like, oh, I use an iPhone, like everyone's so excited to engage into whatever. It's always good to kind of engage the audience. And obviously humor is a great tool. So when I ask, okay, who uses iPhone, everyone raises their hand. I say, who uses Android? And then like 5 people raise their hand. I'm like, I'm so sorry. Then everyone starts laughing, right? You engage the audience. Humor is great. Humor is a great tool. But it's always good to have a structure, right? You have kind of an opening of your, who you are and what you're here to talk about. You have, the meat of it, and then a strong ending, right? Don't just end with like, all right, great, bye guys, have a good day. Like that's, you got to end strong, right? And whatever that means. If sometimes I say like, all right, guys, that's all I got. Thank you so much. Done, finished, easy, whatever. Or some strong ending where it's clear. Boom, this is where it ends. So it's always good to have structure. But I think at the end of the day, I often go over to bar mitzvah kids in shul before they start reading the Torah, and I say, listen, you spent whatever amount of years studying. Don't open and start studying. You know it. Like that's not your issue right now. The only thing right now that separates whether you're going to do this successfully or not is your confidence. Like if you get up there and you read the encyclopedia, but with confidence, people love it. If you get up there and you're shaky and you're not confident, I don't care how well you know it, it's not going to be good. So, confidence is extremely important when you're speaking, right? The energy, right? People get up there and they're like low energy and they're like nervous and I get it. Like public speaking is the biggest phobia in the world, it's the biggest fear in the world. I get it. I'm tremendously grateful to like God that I don't have that fear, that I have this gift that I just get on stage. I've never, in the thousands of lectures that I've given, I've never prepared ever once.
Really?
Sorry, let me correct that. Once I did a commencement speech and it was extremely formal, extremely whatever. So I prepared a little bit for that, but thousands of speeches I've never prepared. In fact, when I was asked to prepare, I was like, there's no way, because if I'm sitting there on stage reading off of like index cards or paper, it's just not as authentic. It's not as, appealing, and it's not as engaging. So, confidence is important. Of course, if you don't have a memory or it's hard for you to remember the structure and you need to write it down. So then again, write down like a one word on an index card so that it sparks your memory, but don't start reading off a piece of paper under any circumstances. Like that will never work. So, I think it's structure. I think it's humor. I think it's engaging the audience, and I think it's confidence.
Has not preparing ever backfired on you?
No.
Wow. It's that off the cuff feeling that you're going for. You want to keep it authentic.
Yeah, but it also again brings us back to that original point, which is passion, right? If I get up, if I'm asked to get up and speak about, I don't know whatever topic that I'm not passionate about, then I'm not going to be able to do it successfully. But if I'm asked to get up and speak about Israel, to speak about tech, to speak about cars, to speak about things that I'm passionate about, then I could do that in my sleep because I love it so much. So it has to be something you're passionate about. Otherwise, it's going to be very transparent that you're up there speaking about something you're not passionate about.
Right, for sure. Guys, sorry for the quick interruption. I just want to ask you, please, if you're enjoying this podcast, share with a friend, leave a comment, a like, anything you could do to help grow the podcast would be greatly appreciated. Back to the episode. So, throughout your blog, you've interviewed people like Mark Andreessen, Steve Wozniak, Gary Vee, a plethora of other insanely successful and well-known people. How do you go about making a memorable connection with them? You meet them and you want them to remember you. And they meet hundreds of people, thousands of people every year. How do you approach that?
First of all, here's a secret for you and your viewers, which is everyone likes to be on stage. Everyone likes to be interviewed. Everyone has their mom they want to send the interview to.
Right.
How do I know that? Because 100% of the people that I asked to interview agreed. 100% of them.
Really?
Don't say it's because I have a lot of followers, because when I interviewed these people, I didn't have a lot of followers. In fact, it's the opposite. I gained the followers by interviewing these people. So people like to be on stage. Now, of course, if you're going to reach out to someone who's not active on Twitter and you're going to write them on Twitter, they're not going to respond. Be intelligent about it. But honestly, Steve Wozniak, the founder of Apple and the man who invented personal computing, you know how I got to interview him? I sent him a message on Facebook. True story,
really?
I promise. Yep.
You didn't email him? You
sent him a message on Facebook. I kid you not.
And he responded?
He responded.
And where'd it go from there? He said yes right off the bat?
No. First time I asked him, he said no. But he responded, which was super cool in and of itself. I followed up like a year later, and I said, listen, it would mean so much to me. He again said no. Followed up a year later, and I said, what would it take to convince you? And he said, all right, just send me the questions. Sent him the questions. He sent me back the answers, copy, paste. Post went viral. He comments on my Facebook and says, had I known you were this popular, I would have let you interview me 3 years ago.
That's
and then
great.
we became friends, like actual friends, offline friends. He came to Israel. We had breakfast. I had to rush into a bomb shelter, like crazy stuff.
Wow, that's cool. So you reach out to these people and you're sitting with them, you're interviewing them. How does that pan out for you? Meaning you're talking to them, but in the years following, do you have a structure in terms of following up, in terms of really like staying on their radar so that they don't forget the one of the 1,000 interviews? You know?
So first of all, most of my interviews were not done offline; they were done online. So Steve Wozniak's interview was done over email. I sent him 10 questions, he sent me back 10 answers. I copy paste,
Got it.
right? I met him offline afterwards, but the interview was done online. Same with Mark Andreessen. I had not met Mark Andreessen. Those that are listening might not know who Mark Andreessen is. Mark Andreessen is one of the probably the biggest venture capitalist and first investor in Facebook and many other leading companies. But he is most well known for inventing the web browser at Netscape. So today we have Chrome, we have Safari, but he basically invented the modern web browser. He was on the cover of Time magazine. I mean, the guy's an absolute legend. And yeah, I just reached out to him offline and I said, not offline, sorry, online. And I said, can I interview? And he said, yeah. Some of these interviews, video interviews were done obviously offline, but most of these interviews, including Gary, including, Mark and Steve, were done online.
Okay, cool.
And
I love
by
it.
the way, quick story. I don't think I've ever told this story actually, but I had not met Mark Andreessen. I had not met him in real life, but after I interviewed him, we stayed in touch. I sent him deals all the time. Like I wouldn't say we spoke regularly, but I would say at least once a month we would communicate by email.
Sure.
And on one of my trips, I was in Silicon Valley, and I obviously wanted to go meet. I wanted to go to Andreessen Horowitz, which is Mark Andreessen's firm. I went to meet one of his other partners, a guy named Benedict Evans, who was just a friend of mine from Twitter. And I was sitting with Benedict Evans, and I finished the meeting, and I left. I left the office. Mark was not in, and I was like, oh, I was pretty bummed because I had not met Mark, but we were in touch for so long. And as I'm leaving Andreessen Horowitz, a black SUV pulls up, tinted windows, and the door opens, and Mark gets out, and he's on the phone. And he's talking. I'm telling you, I don't think I ever told this story. And he's talking to one of his companies, clearly a company in distress, because like it was clear from the conversation that he was like telling them should they shut the company down, should they not to shut the company down. And he's on the phone. And for an investor, that's a pretty kind of high pressure kind of call. It's like you invested in this company, they're about to shut down.
Right.
But here's my chance. Like he's about to walk by me. He's on the phone. I'm like, well, I'm gonna miss the opportunity. So I literally I wave at him and I'm like, Hillel Fuld. He literally takes the phone. He's like, I'll call you back. Hangs up the phone. He goes, Hillel, what's up? I was like, holy sh! I'm talking to Mark Andreessen right now. Like he
Wow.
knows I exist. I was like, what the heck? And by the way, that's not even the coolest story when it comes to these kind of things. Gary V, by far the coolest story. He had been following me on Twitter. We were, I met him when he was in Israel. I would say we were acquaintances plus friendly. We weren't friends by any means, but about 10 years ago, I was hosting a conference in New York, and I really wanted Gary V to be the keynote. So I DM'd him on Twitter, and I said, Gary, I'm coming to New York. I'm doing this event. I'd really love you to come keynote. He said, yeah, no problem. Done. I'm like, great. He goes, $50,000. I'm like, dude, we're an early stage startup. I can't, like, I really want you to come, but I don't have budget for that. And I thought that was the end of the conversation. I said to him, I appreciate it. Love you. Not going to happen. About a minute later, I get an email from Gary to his assistant CCing me saying, please waive the $50,000 fee for Hillel. He's a friend. And he came to the conference and he spoke for free. It's on YouTube, by the way.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean it's
Wow.
crazy. And
Gary
now,
V.
yeah, and now I would say, I would say he would call me a friend. Like, we see each other, we get, big hugs, and I mean I have some issues with him right now because he's not really speaking out. As a Jew, he should be speaking out, but that's a whole different discussion. But yeah, we speak pretty regularly. Like sometimes I'll send him, either a CV or something, and he'll respond right away. I'll say like, dude, I have no time for this right now. Like he's always very responsive, and that all happened from reaching out online and offering to interview him.
So cool. And you mentioned Israel advocacy briefly. I want to dive into that. So tell me about how you've shifted your focus in terms of, from business to Israel advocacy. And yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, listen, at the end of the day, while I was a tech guy promoting tech, really the underlying message was Israel. It was always Israel. It was always Israeli tech. But if you followed me, you would have considered me a tech guy, not an Israel guy. 6 years ago, my brother was murdered in a terrorist attack, and he was a very outspoken Israel advocate. So that kind of pulled me into the conflict. So I kind of half removed the mask of the tech guy. And if you followed me, you already understood that I'm promoting tech, but really I'm promoting Israel. But I still didn't remove the mask completely. I still was a tech guy. October 7th happened, and I'm like, the world doesn't need more marketing right now. The world doesn't need more tech right now. The world needs more Israel right now. And so I completely shut down this business, and I completely transitioned to Israel advocacy. And I just realized I have, this large platform, and I have the ear of the tech world who, generally speaking, is pretty anti-Israel, and they're not going to be listening to any like Israel advocates, but they don't view me as this Hasbara guy. They view me as Hillel, their colleague. And so they trust me. And so I realized I'm in this unique position. And so since the war started, I've been, 100% focused on Israel advocacy, providing real-time accurate information and just giving people a reason to get up in the morning. But Israel's been my 100% focus since October 7th.
Beautiful. And you were just honored by the Israeli government. Tell us about that.
Yeah, yesterday was pretty nuts. I get a WhatsApp about, I don't know, 3 weeks ago, from some woman says, "Listen, I'm representing Dan Iluz, who's an MK, a Chaver Knesset, a Knesset member, and he's putting together, an event, a conference with, some of the biggest warriors for Israel online, and we'd love to honor you." I'm like, "Okay, that sounds amazing, whatever." And yeah, so yesterday we showed up to Knesset, and it was 50 Israel advocates, and we had some MKs speak, and every single basically Israel warrior in the room, and they presented each one of us with a nice award from the state of Israel, thanking us for our fighting, for Israel on behalf of Israel online. It was a beautiful event, and it was quite emotional
Beautiful.
actually.
Beautiful. First of all, congratulations on that. Um, I want to ask you, as somebody who was able to shift their focus completely from business to Israel advocacy or to giving back. That's your form of giving back. How do you incorporate giving back into business? How do you do it from your day to day?
I mean, networking obviously is an incredibly important part of business. So most people, again, when they're looking to network, they're thinking, "What's in it for me?" Instead of doing that, why not? If you want to, let's say, you want to meet an investor, um, so instead of reaching out and pitching them your startup, offer to interview them, right? Give them a stage, right? You just got on their radar, easy, right? Or if you're going to meet someone, instead of focusing on what you can get out of the meeting, ask the person you're sitting with to tell them about you. Ask them what their challenges are. People love that. People love talking about themselves, and it differentiates you from everyone else because everyone else is me, 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 me. Stop focusing on you. Talking about Gary Vee, we have, he has his famous book, Jab, 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 Right Hook, give, 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 and then take, right? So, try to focus on others in networking and in business in general, right? If you stop selling and start giving, a company realizes, wow, this guy's legit. Like he has incredible value. We need him. And then they need you. And then you define the terms, not them.
You're very responsive on social media, on email, and I imagine you get reached out to by many young adults, by many young people, ambitious young people, whether it be wannabe startup founders or people interested in the business world or in the advocacy world. So, what do you tell young adults as the first step to take? Say somebody like me, I'm 18 years old. I'm just I'm starting college. What should the first step for me be to take to put myself ahead in terms of business?
So it's a good question. I'll tell you what I tell people. The first thing I tell people is to sit down and ask them themselves the following question. When you're 120 years old on your deathbed and you look back at your career and you make a big check mark, what does that look like? Meaning, what are your top priorities for your career? So I'll give you a couple of examples. Is making money your top priority? Okay, fine. That's legitimate. If that's your top priority, then maybe working in an early stage startup is not right for you because they can't pay you good money, right? Is having an impact your top priority, meaning making the world a better place? Fantastic. So then maybe you want to work in like a healthcare company, right? Is having an impact in the organization important for you? Then you don't want to work at a corporate because you're not going to be impactful in Google, right? Is the list goes on and on. What is it that you want to accomplish, right? You want to make people happy. You want to make it, work with good people. What is important to you? And it's not just one thing. You should have a list of, let's say, 5 to 10 things that these are your top priorities. Once you have that list in front of your eyes, you have a lot more clarity about what you want to do, what you don't want to do. So if you want to have an impact on the world, then you're not going to work in gambling, right? Or if you want to work with good people, then maybe you shouldn't, work in a certain industry, whatever it may be. So that's the first step that I tell people is sit down, figure out what your priorities are. Once you have that list, then you have clarity of kind of what you want to do, what you don't want to do. So once you have that clarity, then I tell people make an Excel sheet, right? Make 5 tabs. Each tab is a vertical. So again, let's say, I don't know what, let's say, having an impact is important to me. Okay, so one tab might be healthcare. One tab might be mental health. One tab might be, helping special needs. I don't know, whatever it is, things that are meaningful, right? And then under each tab, start doing research into companies and come up with a list of, let's say, 10 companies in that vertical that you like. Why do you like them? I don't care why you like them. You like them because you like the product, you like their investors, you like the company culture. I don't care why you like their website. I don't care. And then once you have done that, then you have real clarity. You have 50 companies that you want to target, right? And then comes the networking. Find someone who can make introductions for you. Have cups of coffee. At least in Israel, that's how things happen. Everything happens over cups of coffee, right? Have a cup of coffee with someone. Not in the context of, hey, I want to meet you so you could hire me. No. Hey, I want to meet you because I love what you're doing at the company and I want to figure out if I can help in any way. People love that. So that's kind of the first couple of steps in terms of building your career.
I love that as a theme of really this entire episode. You like focusing on the last thing that you just said, which is you have to want to help people. Don't just try to don't be in it for yourself. Amazing. Any books that you find yourself going back to for a sounding board, for advice or for techniques, strategies?
Oh man, there's so many. Where do I even begin?
Yeah.
There's a book called, by the way, I once emailed Mark Andreessen. I asked him that question. I said, Mark, what books do what books? And he CC'd his partner,
Ben?
Ben Horowitz, and Ben and him threw out some books at me by email. It was the coolest thing ever.
That's cool.
0 to 1's amazing. Extreme Ownership is amazing. The Hard Thing About Hard Things is probably my favorite book ever about startups.
Cool.
What's his name? Tim Ferriss's books of like
Tribe of Mentors, yeah.
I could look right here at my shelf. I mean, I'm looking at Tribe of Mentors. What do we got here? Lead by Greatness. What else we got here? I mean, the thing is that my books are a mixture of like Jewish stuff and business stuff. But yeah, I mean, Hooked is a great book by Nir Eyal. What is that? Steal the Show. Oh,
Amazing.
Lean Startup. I mean, yeah, the list is long.
Yeah, for sure. I love it. My books are also a mix of Jewish focused and business. I love it. The show has a signature question. The show is called Momentum. We're trying to inspire young adults on their journey to success, to giving back, philanthropy, and we want them to build up their momentum. Small steps lead you to big things in the long run. So I want to ask for you your momentum moment, the moment where you saw what you were doing, whether it be startup advising, writing, interviewing people, and what was your momentum moment? What was the moment where you realized things were catching on? You could do this you can pursue this as a career, and you love what you do.
I don't know if there was one moment, but I think I have these moments pretty regularly. I'll give you one example, but again, I don't know that there was one moment. So many years ago, a company in Silicon Valley came out with an iPad app, and it was a beautiful, beautiful app, and I loved it. It was really early days of the iPad. And I loved the app, and I started to write about the app and promote the app. Again, not because they asked me to. I had zero relationship with them. I loved the app. Genuinely, promoted it because I loved the app. And this went on for years. And again, at no point did I speak to the company. At no point did they ask me to promote it. It was purely from authentic and genuine place. This went on for literally a decade. And one day, I'm minding my own business at home, and I get the following email. I'm reading it for you. The subject of the email is thank you. The email says, Hillel, I won't ever forget. This is, by the way, a multi-billion-dollar startup in Silicon Valley. Wow. Not Jewish, not Israeli, nothing to do with Israel. Just an amazing startup. Hillel, I won't ever forget your enduring support for what we have been building over the years. It's time we got you some stock and asked you to be a formal advisor. I know you wouldn't ask for this, but it's the right thing to do. I hope you'll accept. We are only just beginning, and I could really use your advice when you have the time. My mind, I was like, what the? Again, multi-billion-dollar company. Wow. I'm like, so that was kind of one moment where I was like, holy crap. But throughout the years, I met so many companies and tried to help in so many different ways that sometimes when I get like a message, reminding me of what I did for a company, it blows my mind. So, I did one of these features last year, and I featured a CEO of a company. His name is Ariel Asaraf, and he's the CEO of a company called Coralogics. And I featured him, and I wrote, I remember I helped him in the beginning of the company, but I don't really remember what I did, but I just do remember I helped him. So he commented on that post and wrote the following thing. So that our LinkedIn connections don't stay in uncertainty, I'll remind you how we met. I texted you that we started something a couple of years ago, and it isn't going great. You, 1, met me for lunch to learn more and see how you can help. 2, gave advice on how crappy our social media presence was. 3, helped me prepare and launch in Product Hunt to get to the second place that day ahead of a launch by Apple. 4, connected me to over 10 people, including some key tech decision makers in the Bay Area. 5, connected me to job candidates I was looking for. 6, asked for nothing in return. Thank you, man. This is a great opportunity to look back and say it. I appreciate you and all you have done for us and so many startups I know. I read that and I'm like, wow. Who's he talking about? So things like that, when I get that, when I get that kind of feedback, it's extremely, I would say, gratifying.
Gratifying, rewarding. It keeps you going. That's your momentum. I love it. That's beautiful. Hillel, thank you so much. Is there anything else you think young adults today should hear? one takeaway that I have, if I may, from this conversation: help first, seek to give value, don't seek for anything in return. The number 6 on the guy's list was you didn't ask for anything in return. Beautiful. Do you have anything else that you think young adults today should know, should live by?
Yeah, I think that the worst advice people give is the last guy finishes last. That's just ridiculous. I mean, the nice guy finishes last. That's just ridiculous.
Right.
Absolutely not true. Absolutely not true. And being nice in business is the best business model in the world. And always, I don't know who said it, but don't step on people on the way up because you might meet them on the way down.
That's good. That's a good quote. And that's a great one to end off the episode. Hillel, thank you so much for coming on.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right, awesome. Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of Momentum with my guest, Hillel Fuld. As I mentioned just a few seconds ago, my main takeaway from this episode is one word: give. Give to others. Provide value, provide your time, provide dedication to others, and you will see it come back tenfold. Guys, make sure to follow Hillel on all platforms. I'll link his socials in the show notes. He's at Hillel Fuld on all platforms. Be sure to follow him. If you enjoyed this episode, I highly encourage you to check out my conversation with Alan Levy. Alan is the extremely experienced founder of Alchemy Works, a marketing consulting agency working with brands like Disney and SiriusXM. Alan opens up about how he founded multiple companies during the tech bubble of the late 90s, how he raised venture capital funding, and how he got ousted from his own company, and more. You can find that episode in the show notes or by searching Momentum Alan Levy wherever you get your podcasts. Again, that's Momentum Alan Levy with the CEO of Alchemy Works. With that said, thank you again for watching. Please be sure to subscribe on your podcast platform of choice. We're on all platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Instagram. We're everywhere. Please rate the show 5 stars. Leave a comment. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Until next time.